Hello, and welcome to Enlightened Empaths, your community for the spiritually awakened, where we discuss, explore, and connect with fellow empaths, healers, intuitives, and seekers. Hello, empaths. Boy, do we have a treat for you. We are going to talk about rebirthing a new chapter in your life and bringing new purpose and meaning and a deeper connection to the sacred with our very, very special guest, Rebecca Campbell. As you all know, she's an international best-selling writer, poet, healer, ritualist, spiritual teacher, visionary, and mystic. She's been featured in Vogue, The Sunday Times, Oprah, and Psychology's magazine. She's created so many beautiful oracle decks, such as the Rose Oracle, Work Your Light, among many. And Rebecca's work has been translated into over 20 languages through her work to help people answer the call of their soul. She's just released her fourth book, Your Soul Had a Dream, Your Life Is It. I love that title. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Samantha and Denise. I'm really happy to be here with you both.
We are huge fans, and we do want to dive into your book. But first, we'd love to hear, how did you transition from being an award-winning creative director in London to this beautiful sacred work you're doing now?
It took a long time. I had my first vision of what I do now back when I was a teenager, but I never could see what that path was, and I just saw it as something I was interested in. I was just always interested in the unseen. I couldn't understand why other people weren't fascinated by what happens when you die and those kind of existential questions. So I've got a lot of Scorpio in my chart, so it might have been that. But it was very different to my upbringing. It was very, as I'm talking, preaching to the choir here on this podcast, but I was definitely very highly sensitive. I didn't realize it, but I'm a channel for sure. I work with collective beings, and I process a lot in my surroundings and in the collective. And so it was really confusing growing up. And so I kind of had this almost like a bit of a double life. I knew I wanted to create things and create beauty. And I also knew that I was to work, travel around the world creativity was a huge part of it. And at that stage, when I in my teens and 20s, I couldn't quite work out how the two could marry up. So yeah, I just followed my passion in the mystic arts, learning about psychic development, just through pure fascination. And it kind of got to the point, I think a lot of us get to in those crossroad moments of our life where maybe we experience a rock bottom, we experience grief, we experience some kind of extreme transition period. And finally it was all right, I need to act on this now. But looking back, it's so much easier to say this looking back, but it's all kind of perfect. What I learned when I was a creative director has really helped me. I didn't have this big goal to create oracle cards. I loved them, and don't get me wrong, I am a very hard worker, and so I put a lot into them. But that's a part of my path that has just kind of opened for me and just kind of really flowed. And that's because of my background. So I think nothing's ever wasted, and it's never too late to answer the call. But yeah, so it was always like a bit of a double life. I don't know if you guys have a similar story, but yeah.
What's wonderful is that each of your decks is unique unto itself. That a lot of times when people are very prolific with decks, they'll have a repetitive message, but each of yours is very, very unique. So I know that you've done a lot with connecting with that collective consciousness that you work with. Do you feel that you're connecting to the same team for each deck, or is it a separate they're all so beautiful?
I love this question. Thank you so much for seeing that and acknowledging that. You're going to love my new deck out in September. It's I don't have it here. I literally just got it sent. It looks the most different out of everything. It's like black and gold, basically. It's very different. It's my favorite one, but yeah, it's very different from the pastel style. But Yeah, thank you for that. That's a beautiful compliment for me. I'm a 4 on the Enneagram, so I always want to be unique. And I think it's 100%, you got it in one, each of the decks and each of my books, I'm really working with a different group of guides. And so it's a different energy that is coming in. I think that I do work with some teams that kind of come in that hold a certain frequency. Like I'm a what I resonate with, and this is a term that I have really just been really claiming and stepping into now. I didn't have the term before, but I see myself as a conduit channel. So I'm definitely don't go into full trance. Like my consciousness is definitely here. My soul is like weaving with, like it's like co-creating with for sure. But it's also a little different from just like inspiration from spirit. So it's kind of like somewhere in between. And oh my God, they're just labels, they're just words. But recently being able to name that has helped me really understand what's happening energetically. I've always been comfortable what's happening energetically creatively because I am very aware of what collective team I'm working with. And because of my background, I'll do like a mood board. I like, I've got all my cards. It's a full process that I step into. So I'm very clear with the purpose and all of that, who my team is for that particular creation. But on a personal level, when I am processing in that same way, that's been more confusing for me. And so being able to like have that label and be like, because I think with the conduit, it really pushes your free will to the extreme. And I've always been very protected. I've never felt afraid. Um, I am really astute with my like energetic boundaries and things like that. So I'm not just like, like this. I have Virgo in my chart. I was raised in a non-airy fairy family. It's very practical and grounded. So I do have that in me, which I think is my soul chose that because yeah, I think it needed it. But there are times in my life where I think that my soul has chosen to be a conduit for something. And on a personal level, I found that harder. And so I feel like I'm just beginning to wrap my hands around what that actually is. But creatively, I've always felt very clear and confident in that sense. Yeah.
Is there like a who me feeling with that uncomfortableness, or is it more why me?
Yeah, it's very interesting because I think from a young age, I always knew that I came here for a reason, and perhaps we all have that knowing deep down. I don't know. I know what's true for me, and I always was like, there's something I'm here to do. I need to find it. I need to find it. I need to find it. And I knew that it had the word I would use now is transmit. I came here to transmit something. I did not have that understanding or vocabulary at all, but I knew it was about sharing. I would call it creations or sharing my voice in some way. But when I was in advertising, I would I'd walk along the beach in the morning to get my ideas for the day, and I was like very undercover in the sense back then I called myself an undercover light worker in that I would walk along the beach and be like, all right, so this brand has this massive budget to spend, and I'd be like really in honor of like what the brand represents and all the person that is interested in it, the right match and all that. But I do this other layer of like what creations are ready to be birthed onto the planet. And like that was like what I was secretly doing. And I don't know if that was like the idea. Like now I'm like, I think it was also like transmitting like into the creations. And I think this is why I love oracle cards. But I think this is also possible. And I think I do this in my books as well, because I think words can package up energy too. But particularly oracle cards with the images, like with the craft and the co-creation with Illustrator, if they are working energetically in that partnership with you, you really can transmit something, and it can be felt no matter like what level you're at or whatever. Like you don't need to like understand it to receive it, it's almost like a key. Yeah, again, I'm just beginning to understand that after creating so much. I even I recorded my audio book for my latest book, Your Soul Had a Dream, Your Life Is It. And that was the fourth book I recorded. And I always did not feel confident as like that I would be a writer because I'm dyslexic and I barely read. I don't read very often because of that. And struggled at school. Comprehension was not good for me. But recently I've been like, oh no, that's actually perfect for what my gift is. And it's taken me a while to claim it. But yeah, and so I was in the audio recording studio, and yeah, by the fourth book, I'm like, it's very bizarre how I really struggle to read something word for word. But when it comes to my book, something comes in and it just, the energy is there. And I can feel how when something's been overly edited, I stumble on that because it's like I tend to do my writing when I walk in nature. And I think that helps me because it's like there's this like thread or channel that's coming in and it's like word, word, word. Like it's like I'm picking up crumbs or seeds along the way. And when I'm reading it, I can feel that rhythm of like the step and then the step and then the step and then the step. And then as I was reading it and I'd stumble, I'm like, oh, that's because that rhythm, which is really what was coming through me rather than written by me, was disrupted. So, I find it so interesting.
Did you find the same, Samantha, when you recorded your book?
Yeah, that's why I was nodding so much because, yeah, the same when we had a really meticulous editor, and you have a rhythm and a cadence to the way you write. So I completely resonate with that. But also
Mm.
wanted to thank you for sharing about being dyslexic. I have one of my daughters is dyslexic, and she's my most creative and my most intuitive. So I think even those things we see as not being gifts, maybe we see them as challenges. I think they are gifts, and that's something I think your latest book really speaks to as well. And so I wonder if you could just give people an overview of what really compelled you to write this book, especially now where I feel like it's needed most.
Oh my gosh. Well, this book feels like the one out of all of them. I think it transmits the most, but it's the one that I find the most challenging to like tie up in a little bow. um, and it's the one that compared to all the others, I was able to be like, oh, this is exactly who it's for, and blah blah blah, blah. And it was still like I was working with a team of guys, but this one I really wrote through a period of extreme change and transformation. It was when I became a mom. Twice. And then it was also as we were all navigating COVID, the huge changes over the past 7 years. It's really a 7-year cycle that I received the writing. And it wasn't until the end of the book that I started like even being able to be like, how do I thread this together? And I realized, oh my gosh, it's a book about these times. It's a book about collective rebirth. It's a book about how we are facing endings and beginnings and dark night of the soul for humanity. But just like it's like this collective chrysalis that we're in right now, and how to trust that like the more that we open our heart through the extremes of life and invite our soul to really come into physical form, and yet keep our heart open as we are all, particularly those of us who are sensitive, are in our own individual way processing the history of our ancestry, the history of the land, what is happening collectively. um yeah, so that's kind of how I would describe what the book is about. It's also a book about the way of the mystic. It's a book about returning to the mystery school of nature and really knowing that that change is the most natural thing in the world. And when we resist it, we actually get out of flow with that intelligent pulse. Yeah, which doesn't
Yeah.
mean it's easy. It's not easy. It's change is not easy. Oh my God. But I do find comfort in seeing because I think it is our disconnection from nature, which is our disconnection from the sacred, disconnection from knowing that we can go direct, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. When you mentioned your soul as a conduit, that's a beautiful way to put it, because I think that's the epitome of looking at this as being of service with
Mm,
what you're bringing through from spirit and from the collective.
mm.
And do you feel that the connections are stronger and clearer? I'm a huge, nature is a big part of my life.
Mm.
And I feel like the messages, the connection, the interconnectedness of all of it is so much stronger than it's ever been. So are you
I
finding in your later works that there's more of an influence from the
Yeah,
collective?
I find it, do you mean the collective or nature or both?
Oh, kind of
Both,
both.
yeah.
I think it's
You
a
know, I I've been asking myself this question because I live here in Glastonbury, which is the land here has taught me so much, and it's been about 7 years that I've lived here. And this is a town that is in deep reverence to the wheel of the year. Like people, as you walk down the street on solstice, will say happy solstice, like happy holidays. Like it's like literally like a full on thing. And the goddess is revered here. I don't know anywhere else like it. And so I can't work out if I have just gone deeper and I'm just seeing it more. Because when I do look back, it's always been the connection with nature for me where I've received. Even as that teenager, even younger than that, when we'd go away camping with my family. And I remember first being aware of what I called then like the whispers of my soul, as I would be like, we'd be driving through a national park, for example, and I'd be watching all the gum trees go by and I'd hear the birds and all of that. And I think that kind of the movement, it's always movement for me, coupled with nature, helped me enter into an altered state. So I look back, I'm like, it's always been here. But maybe I just didn't see it. And I didn't see the sacred that's been here. And I think also I've had various different awakening experiences, like I'm sure you guys have, where it opens you up a little more to the codes. And so there's more that you can receive. But yeah, it's an interesting question. I genuinely don't know the answer to that. I definitely receive more now, but I'm aware of how I'm receiving it. So maybe it was always there.
No, that's perfect because I think I mean my whole thing is that we're part of it, we're not separate from it. And
Mm,
I think that nature is
mm,
trying to help us right now. The natural world is trying to say, come on, get
yes.
back on board. We'll help you move forward with these changes that are happening.
Mm,
And we just have to pay attention. That's the
yeah.
big magic secret, isn't it?
It's so it's so simple and kind of so challenging to explain that.
Mhm.
Because it seems basic and it is, but it's not.
Right.
So true.
I
Thank
love
you.
the way you really model your message of surrender because from what I'm hearing from you, you always had these inklings of who you were becoming and the work you were supposed to do. But living in a crowded, bustling city like London and working for an ad agency, you couldn't really see it. You just
Mm,
felt it. And it sounds like you just surrendered to it and listening to how you connect with nature and how you allow these messages to flow through you. There's a lot of surrender there that I
mm,
think is the key to everything. When I look at intuitive development, when I look at manifesting, when I look at any type of change we're trying to invite into our life, it seems as though surrender is at the basis of that. And it
mm.
sounds as though you've gone through your work with this attitude of, I'm feeling this, I'm getting this inkling, something is starting to crystallize. I'm just going to go with the flow and see where it takes me. That is such a great attitude to bring to any work, but especially this sacred work you do.
Oh, thank you. It's definitely a like a work in progress, and sometimes are easier than others. I think what I really learned, one of my teachers in my 20s, Sonia Choquette, I was very drawn to her. I loved how agile she was. Like, we did a lot of dance, which I'd always been a dancer, and I would do like this intuitive dance as I was studying in my teens, like at school. So a lot of the things are these things that you like naturally do, you know. But what she really taught me, and I think this is why I was really drawn to her for my 20s, was it was all about, you got to act on it. Like, it's pointless unless you act on it. And that's also what I learned in with my creative mentors as well. As a creative director, I did not start as a creative director. I was junior creative, and I would literally have to come up with hundreds of headlines for maybe one to be chosen, you know. They'd be scrunched up in front of me. It was a bit toxic, but it really taught me that it's just like, ideas are pointless unless you act on them, and you just got to keep on going with the flow, you know. And so from an intuitive perspective and a creative ideas perspective, and PS, I think they're both the exact same thing. It's like bringing the unseen into physical form. Is that it's like, we as humans, we get to express that, we get to embody that. And even like intuition, for so long I was seeing intuition as this like unseen thing, like as in like it was this like, you know, I'm doing this like movement if anyone's listening, whereas like, you know, it's a bit more watery or airy. But really intuition is of the body. It's the body that is talking to us. And when I got that, I was like, oh my God, yes. And the times in my life where I've struggled the most, they're definitely, and I always forget this, and I'm saying this, I say that, and I say this to my friends recently, and I'm like saying it to myself, I'm like, remind me this, because I forget when I need it. I got to move my body. If I don't move my body, I I get stuck. I get an overload of information and I stagnate, or I go into that overdrive, right? Whereas, and this is what Sonia taught me, let your intuition move you. Let yourself be moved by it. Same thing with creativity. When you've got an idea, act on it, work on the craft. Doesn't mean like you have to do all of them. And it's why with creativity in particular, I work with, I'm looking over to my right because I've got all these super sticky post-it notes up on my wall. So I'll always be trying to get it out of my head and into physical form, and then kind of rearranging it, da, 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 da. And so, yeah, I think that has definitely been the thing that's helped me the most with the surrender. It's actually like being moved when I am being moved, and then stopping when I'm not. But making sure that the vessel of the body is clear. Otherwise, I kind of go into overload or shutdown, you know?
Yeah, body, mind, soul, it's all connected. Yeah,
Mm.
and if you have to listen to all of it. I remember when we learned, Denise, remember, I think we did a show years ago on how we have like receptors all along our body, not just in our brain. And I remember going, oh my
Oh,
gosh, everywhere is intuitive on us.
yeah.
Everything that you're saying is so poignant for where we are right now because there are so many people that are feeling that nudge from spirit, feeling that nudge of intuition, feeling more interconnected with things. How would you maybe a suggestion or a process that would help people really connect with that passion? Because I agree with you, when you let it stagnate, whether physically,
Mhm.
emotionally, spiritually, that's when the block comes in. And I think it diverts
Yeah.
us from our path.
Yes, I love that. Okay, so there is two things I'd recommend. They're both very simple. Particularly if you resonate with being an empath, which I assume you do if you're listening to this podcast. So you want to make sure that you're clearing your field each day. And the best way I suggest to do that is either through like dancing. My favorite music to dance to is like, do you know the artist Sia? She's got like an amazing track called Alive and Breathe. And it's like, it's quite, I've, you know, I like the kind of big emotion ones, because I definitely am more clairsentient. That's where I get stuck in my clairsentience. And so I'll put on a song. I try and do it once a day where I'm just like, just kind of letting go and letting my body just like process whatever it is. And particularly if I'm feeling frustrated or angry or emotional or whatever, because I know that if I don't move that, I, it will, I do it all the time. I'll go in front of I love a good series, and I encourage you to watch a good series if you want. But I can definitely, when I get overwhelmed or in overload, I can go into, I just want to shut it down. And it's not, well, I guess it is a form of like numbing out. It's a protection mechanism. But when I look at those times where I have gotten stuck, it's because I'm not doing this. I'm all for tuning out for sure. Like we got to do that. And I love TV series to do that. But if I'm not doing some kind of energy clearing on my body, and my body knows how to clear itself, I don't have to call upon whatever. Like you can do all of that. I've got loads of different things I do for protection and da 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 da. But the best for me is clearing my emotional field. So that's the first thing. Another thing I do is at the end of the day, when I remember before I go to bed, I try and say, I'm going to release any thought, feeling, or emotion that doesn't serve me right now, and that's also not mine. And so just consciously kind of unhooking from that's helpful. And then when it comes to passion, this is super simple, but I swear it is just so transformative. Because I think when we are called to create or called to, be part of this collective shift that we are all really part of, it can feel overwhelming. And like, or even if we have a vision of what we want to do, say we want to write a book, or say we want to, whatever it is, like have a family or whatever it is, go on a sacred pilgrimage. It's this action inaction thing I'm talking about. So we can see maybe the end destination, or maybe we don't even know where we're headed. And most of us, what stops us from living an intuitive life is that we're trying to work out all of the steps along the way, which makes sense because, it's a protection mechanism for sure. It's logical. Like I'm all for making sure that, you're heading the right way. But there's got to be some kind of, if you are going to live intuitively, there's got to be some kind of like baby step that you're taking each day, little grounded action in that direction, not the great big sweeping leaps, but just literally like having some kind of practice where you're tuning in, you're like, okay, I'm trusting this vision that I'm getting. What's the next step I can take today? Like literally like something that'll take you 5 minutes. And then if you're not sure about what the passion is, but you're really wanting to find it, I would say ask yourself what lights you up and just keep following that. Because eventually, if you're lit up, you're going to be inspired, you're going to be in your spirit. So yeah, and then you're just acting on that, acting on that. You don't have to spend your whole day doing it, but just little things. That's what happened to me. That's how I literally started writing again. It's how I ended up writing the Rose Oracle. I've got a mystery school where we work with the rose as a guide, as a symbol of the ancient feminine. It began because I first prayed for guidance and I got that question, what lights you up? And the number one thing was flowers. And then I followed that each and every day. I bought myself 3 roses or 3 flowers. I bought myself flowers once a week. And then I discovered how much I loved roses, bought myself 3 roses each week. And then I discovered Regent's Park Rose Garden, where I wrote my first book. And I really connected with the whispers of nature again that I had as a child and I had as I was walking along the beach. But I hadn't connected with really the land here in the UK. I grew up in Australia, and it was through the rose that I did. And that was just by saying what lights me up. So it seems simple, but it's so powerful.
The simple things are the most powerful,
Oh
which is
yeah.
so true. And I feel like what you just gave us there also answers or further answered my question on surrender, because it's those little steps and taking and
Mm,
trusting as you ask the question and follow that guidance and take action. I feel as though this book, it's no coincidence that you wrote this book through your motherhood journey, because I feel like what you're writing about is the birthing process, giving
mm,
birth to our true purpose. And that process, just like motherhood, is messy and
mm.
beautiful and miraculous and hard and and easy. It's all of it together in one. Can you talk to us about how becoming a mother has changed you and enhanced your connection to all of your work and your spiritual side?
Oh my God. It's such a big question. it it I was afraid that it would take me off my path. But of course that can't be true, because in on one hand, it's like you're literally creating life in your body. Like that's like literally the codes of life. So talk about nature as the greatest mystery school. Birth is still teaching me that. Literally, birth is my number one teacher for sure. Um, and at the same time, like it's been the hardest thing ever. Like I wasn't ready for when I became a mum as well, it was the world was in such an extreme situation. There were bushfires in my homeland, then COVID came, lockdown. It was really intense. And so I think postpartum is an intense time anyway, but for whatever reason, my soul chose it to be extra intense. And there's millions and millions of women who went through that as well. And so maybe it would have been just as intense without those time in those times and not those times, or maybe not. I will never know that. But what I experienced in those times was, first of all, it was as if birth connected me with, well, all of the mothers, right? But also all of the mothers in my ancestry. And I remember literally as I was crowning with my son, I I connected with all of the grief and the births and the deaths and the beauty as well of all the women in my line. Like I saw them, and it took me a long time to integrate that. And I'm not even just talking about like that experience. It wasn't the spiritual experience of it. It was like what happened cellularly with me. Like I think your fascia and your hips and your joints, like all of that opening like that, I think it opens a memory in you in I don't fully understand it, but I know it's real. And so for me, it opened up a lot of ancestral memory, collective memory, but also memory, like pre-verbal memory of me as a baby coming. I remember looking at my son, and I had this amazing woman. She's one of my best friends. She's in her mid 80s, and birth is her thing. I met her when I was pregnant with my son, and then she was there. She actually caught my daughter when my daughter was born and lives in the house where both my kids were born, which used to be my house. Her name's Vinnie Dansby. She came to stay, and she kept on saying to me as I walked into the room, postpartum, just like messy, like dirty hair and boobs leaking and, all of that. And she kept on saying, like announcing, here comes the goddess, here comes the goddess. And I was like, yeah,
Yeah,
funny.
right.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But she kept on doing it over and over. Every time I walked into a room, and she'd point towards my son as in to say, look at him. Look at how much he loves you. Look at how much love he came in with. And then there was this one morning where, I was kind of so open and raw in the best and worst ways. And she said it. And this one time she said it, I got it. I really got it. I got it right down to my cells. And it almost destroyed me because I fully received the amount of love that he came in with. And I was like, is it even possible to receive that amount of love? I don't know if I can, because then love brings up everything unlike it. And we can only receive to the capacity that we've been received or that we receive ourselves. So it opened up this huge, huge healing portal for me, which was the hardest period of my life. But it's the most beautiful, transformative period as well. And it's like the essence, the purity of like every intimate experience with the sacred that I've ever had, that touches that space too. But it's also so painful and raw. And to me, it was like the whole human experience and the whole what is happening in the world right now, and how we're being called to, how can we keep our hearts open through all of this? Because we know that grief is evidence of how much we love. And that if we close our hearts off to protect ourselves or separate off, like we have from nature, like we have from each other with all the division that's there, we will all also cut ourselves off from the sweetness and the joy. And like so much of my work since then has been around this concept of healing the mother line. And by that, I don't necessarily mean like the relationship with your mom. I'm talking about the ancestral connection with humanity, really. So we know that we each existed at a cellular level within our grandmother, and she her grandmother, she her grandmother. And so we can track our way back to each other through there. And what I have seen over and over again, and I want to say this as well to like if anyone's listening who is not a mother, this is especially pertinent to you. Because what I'm seeing is that right now, so many of us are processing what has happened and the disconnection and the separation and the trauma and all of that from our ancestral lines. And in doing that, what can happen is as we pass back and process what has not been safe to process or be felt or healed or whatever you want to, however you want to describe it, we can also receive the blessings. We can also receive the gifts, all of the prayers. And for my friends who are not mothers and they say, I'm drawn to this work, but I'm at the end of my ancestral line. So what is happening here? I want to say the work you're doing is so powerful because you get to literally heal your line because you are at the end of the line. And so I just want to encourage you, if you are that, if you're a mother, it's like you got a lot of work that you're holding because the line goes front and back, right? So there's a lot, and you've got the pressure of children and complexity and all of that comes with it, and living the archetype of mother, which is God, that's a whole podcast. Whereas if you're at the end of your line, whew, you can receive the blessings, you can send the healing all the way back. So yeah,
Oh,
it's so
Denise, I feel
beautiful.
like she's talking to you because this is what you're working on.
It
Really.
is. This is, I worked with a group last fall, and I'm a big believer that anything that we're doing is going to send that healing back as well as
Mm,
forward. I absolutely love the way that you described if you're the end of the line, because so many
mm,
people will say, but I'm not a mom, or I'm the last
mm,
one in my generation, or I'm whatever. But I keep remembering that we can't be angry at previous generations. They did not have the cultural or the social
mm,
supports in place. And I'm talking with so many people that it'll just pop right up in their light of they're the one that came in for the healing. They're the one,
mm.
they said, okay, pick me. I'm going to go in and work on this line. And I love, love, love the way you described it. So thank you. Because I think
Thank
that's
you.
what we need to remember is that it's
Mm,
not how big it is, it's about what we came to do on a soul level,
mm.
not
Right.
in comparison to someone else's work
Yes.
or ability.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Mm.
So thank you very, very much.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Oracle deck coming out in September?
Oh, for sure. Well, this is the deck that I was creating when I was creating that book. So it has a similar transmission to it. It because both the book and that deck are actually related to just behind me, if anyone's watching this, there's an image here which is actually from my Starseed Oracle, and the card is called Fall Into My Arms, and it's a depiction of the mystical experience I had, which your soul had a dream, your life is it begins with. It literally begins with that chapter, Fall Into My Arms. And in that, I was doing my kirtan teacher training when that happened, and I went into spontaneous, you might call it trance, but because I was singing in songs I'd never heard of before in different languages, I did not expect it to happen, but my consciousness was there as well, kind of observing and co-creating. So it wasn't full trance, but you'd probably think it was if you saw it. But when I was in that training at the same time, I kept on seeing this visual of the inner temple, which actually is a card from the Work Your Light Oracle. It's actually on the front of that oracle. And so it's a concept that's been with me for many, there we go. So that concept of the inner temple has been with me all that time. And so for me, it like feels like it encapsulates my work completely. Um, so the deck is black and gold. It's actually really cool as well. I wish I had it here, right here, but it as you open it, it's got this gold frame which you can put a oracle card in. So it's like a card of the day, but like you've got it as an altar. It's really cool.
I love that.
But yeah, there's lots of pastel colors as always, but there is a lot of black and gold, which for me represent alchemy, rebirth, the dark feminine, which is where our wisdom and power lie. It's about Anana rising up. It's the hidden faces of the feminine, the hidden codes of the feminine as well. So it's a very sacred feminine deck. But it's all about empowering you to go direct, have that intimate experience with the sacred. And there's a new suit in that deck actually called the polarity suit, which basically it's similar to like reversed cards, where if you pull them and they're kind of flipped the other way, it's got a different meaning. So there's one suit that has the poles meaning. So as in like the opposites, you know, the ecstasy, the agony, summer, winter. Yeah. So to me, that kind of really we've been talking about these themes quite a lot today, of like how to hold the two, like Marion Woodman so beautifully would say, of holding the tension of the opposites. Yeah, the full human experience, which is not one or the other. It's not light or dark. We know from the birth mysteries that it's in the darkness that anything new begins, you know? So it really is embracing like that type of medicine as well.
Oh, I can't wait to see it. That's awesome.
Thank you.
And I just want to add into that it's the feminine divine. It's not about being female or identifying as,
Yeah.
and we all have that aspect of that balance. And I think that that's what your deck
Mm.
is bringing out, is how to connect with that healing of the feminine, not so
Yeah.
much of as an identity.
Agenda, identity,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, energies that exist within each and every one of us, energies that exist within the seasons and nature and everywhere. Yeah.
Do you have a process when you consult your deck or other people's decks? Do you knock out the energy, shuffle three times? Do you have like a specific thing?
Mm. I mean, because I do teach how to read cards. So I have a way that I teach, which is how I do it if I'm doing like sitting down and doing a reading for someone else. But when I'm doing a reading for myself, um, I if someone else has been really using my cards like a lot, or like I did a shoot for one of a training for the new deck just the other day, and the film guy and the tech people, like they were kind of like moving it around, like it was like being used as a prop, if you know what I mean. Rather, yeah. So I was like, okay, I need to like connect in with it, and it was more just kind of like bring the sacred within me and with it within it. So I'll do it more intuitively. So I might kind of just like it'll be shuffling the cards until I feel right, and then I might do it again. But yeah, it's quite bringing the big energy in as well as connecting in myself if I need to shift up the energy. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that because you're connecting with the cards, you're feeling them, you're getting your energy with them and
Mm,
letting it go with the flow, like we were saying
mm,
before. So
mm.
we were wondering before we close out if you could pull a card from
Oh,
one of
sure.
your own favorite decks for our listeners.
Well, I got Rose because I knew you guys pulled the grandmothers before, so I thought I'd just get that one.
Yes, yes. While Rebecca is shuffling, Denise and I pulled out all of our Rebecca Campbell decks and we were just kind of playing around with them. It was so fun because we've been sharing these decks. I mean, I think you gave me at least two of these, Denise, for years,
Oh,
and it's just such an honor to get to meet you,
wow.
Rebecca.
I am absolutely honored myself. Oh, well, no surprise here. We've got Temple of the Rose, which is, to me, this is like Mary Magdalene type codes, Isis, the deep, dark, hidden feminine. It's the ferocious power that we were talking about, which is activated. Um, and I want to say it can be activated in motherhood, but it's not about being a mother. It's about being like an elder. I think it can be also activated in in like perimenopause, menopause too, where you're kind of like your brain changes and you stop being orientating towards the other, and then you're protecting the next generation, you're protecting the earth. It's like that fierceness that kind of comes up, ancient power, activation, scarlet codes, expression. So it is this kind of strong energy. And I would just say, like, it really does feel like the energy that we've been talking about, of particularly clearing lines and being the end of the line, for example, or doing that sacred work of protecting that next generation. Yeah.
Yeah, even the imagery on the card is all the women coming together. It's exactly what we've been
Yes,
talking about. Oh,
exactly. And like reclaiming like the virgin, reclaiming like the veil, the veiled woman. Yeah, beautiful.
oh, I love that. Wow, we are just so impressed with all the work that you are doing. People, you have to go to her website because you can see all your books, all your decks, but also your mystery school, your retreats. I mean, there's just so much you do. I don't know how you find time for it all, but it's impressive and it's really a gift to the world.
Oh, thank you. It's been a gift to share this hour or a little less with you both, Denise and Samantha.
Thank you so much. Very
Yeah,
appreciated.
really, really appreciate it. Do you have anything coming up you want to talk about before we close out,
Mm, no, I
besides the
think
book and
just
the
saying,
deck?
yeah, I think mainly the book and the deck. Yeah, they're the main thing. Mystery School will open for enrollment, I think, in around August. That if you want to go deep with working with guides and reconnecting with the sacred that's all around us. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Well, we'll put links to your website and some of our personal favorite of your decks in our show notes and on our social media pages. Thank you so much. This has just been
Thank
such a
you.
treat.
Beautiful. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. Please remember, as always, to show up, do great work, and share your light.
Take care.
Oh.